in 1964. I was working with SDS in one of the early action projects in South Philly. My father was very upset that I'd taken a year off. He had never finished college, so I was already, disappointing him. When he became an orphan, his parents both dying, one from heart attack and one from suicide, he was taken under the wings of the Scripps family. They sent him off to one of their newspapers. Nobody needs college, He did land finally at Boston University. He made instruments for research, what they needed and how to quantify it. They kept sneaking him onto the back end of grants and so on, but without real benefits. He was very despondent. He had been struggling so hard to get work, and he committed suicide. My mother called and said, "Your father killed himself in his lab." He was manic. This was before lithium, really early on. So I had to come home and take care of my family, including my younger brother. I was furious with him. I'd seen him be in and out of the hospital since I was a kid. It was just like, you've taken up all the oxygen for the whole time I've grown up, and I'm really tired of it. The whole family center dissolved. When I came back, nobody at Harvard suggested that I see a therapist, and locked in Stillman. And, immediately upon leaving Harvard, I fell forward into the 60s. I went out to San Francisco, found the San Francisco Meme Troupe, this theater company, doing this very sophisticated take on what was going on politically. And I just flew. And we were touring campuses and doing these knockout shows, combinations of Brecht and Weil and Commedia. We moved mountains. We started theater companies that lasted for decades. It was a complete life. Here I am, a young man in this incredibly romantic position, and I just kept looking for family. I hooked up with a woman. She had two kids that were the same age my sister and I had been when I was growing up. And at the same time, the theater company was going through its own unconscious cultural revolution. All the leadership basically was sent out to the countryside to work on farms. I mean, not literally, but the meme troupe began to be more and more this kind of agitprop-y thing. And I felt very lost without this visionary character, R.G. Davis, who I consider to be one of my mentors. And I found myself in this family wanting to be with them more than I wanted to be in theater. I was attracted to the notion that was starting to come up of this back to the land movement. And I moved with this little family to a small mining town in Colorado. And there were some amazing things going on. We had to keep this town running with town meetings, a fire department, a water department, to keep the Bureau of Land Management from taking it over. Despite all this exciting stuff, I was living in a little cabin with 3 people, and I've been apologizing to my stepkids ever since. There I was, being my father to these 2 children who were exact replicas of my sister and me. And I was afraid I'm on a death trip here. The ultimate end of this story is suicide. I was frightened. By that time, I also had this wonderful partner who's now my wife. And she encouraged me and said, "Go see a therapist. You really need to get going on this." My father's death, the suddenness and the violence of his death, is still with me. as many therapists have said, the father wound is great. But I am not in fear of suicide. I got skipped over. Up until COVID hit, I've been teaching expositional writing, screenwriting, and it was my real victory over academia. I see the world in a moment of great and terrible crisis against democracy, but I feel hopeful in terms of the amount of grassroots activity that's going on out there. I see the momentum. It was very sad. My father did not make it into the days of the New Left because he would have understood that. During the Depression, he was an organizer for the National Maritime Union. He was on the list for the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. I.F. Stone's Weekly was always on the coffee table. We could have had such a good time together if I had been able to get out of that, oh, you jerk, if I had gotten past my anger, disappointing him, wanting me to be whoever he thought he wasn't. In later years, I began to see that what I shared with my father and mother, in some very fundamental way, we came from places where several generations had been struggling against the system, and that struggle against it was part of what life was about and very essential to who I am. About the time I was 33, my father came to me in a dream. And he just said, it's all right. I'm all right. You're going to be all right. It's so wonderful to see you. It was like we were sitting on a front porch. And I was just ecstatic. You're going to be all right. Give it time. Give it time. You'll see.